Hey guys, welcome back. So today, we're working on something a little bit bigger than normal. This is an almost 20-year-old Winnebago. I went to start it up. It is early spring. Wanted to make sure everything was good and was greeted with an unpleasant surprise. So I went to start it, and initially everything looked good, but when I turned the key, nothing happens. The engine does not crank. And we get a message on the screen that says no J1850 activity, which basically means there's no communication between the cluster and the engine computer. So I decided to just take a quick look at the fuse box because I've had issues in the past with mice getting in. And sure enough, this winter, a mouse made his home in this fuse box. So yeah, needless to say, this is a little bit outside of my wheelhouse. Although I do have equipment to work on small engines, I'm not quite equipped to work on this properly. Regardless though, we have to get this fuse box cleaned up, and I can tell already by this LED light that we do have a blown fuse. And according to the diagram, that is the PCM, which is essentially the brains of the operation. So, we could just replace that, but I'm thinking likely we have chewed wires somewhere that need to be repaired. So let me get you set up a little bit better and get going on this. So we'll start with the easy thing. Hopefully no one's home. These are actually dryer sheets I put in here, which worked pretty well for a few years. This used to be a chronic problem, and this is the first time in quite a while that a mouse ignored them and made his home in there anyway. And before we go any further, I'm going to disconnect the house battery. I did check it. It is fully charged, and it was replaced about half a year ago. All right, let's just double check. With the start battery disconnected, we should not have power. And surprisingly, we do. So we are connected to shore power. Potentially we're getting it from there, or maybe the house battery. So let's disconnect from shore power first, see if that changes anything. All right, shore power is disconnected and still have power. So interesting that the engine seems to be getting power from the house batteries. All right, now every battery is disconnected, unplugged from shore power, and yes, things are finally dead. All right, with the power killed, we can commence the fun. And I'm going to start by trying to get this cable out of the way. It's just interfering a little bit with your view. I believe this is the parking brake cable. That should be good. And what I'm going to do is actually clean these fuses first before I take them out, because I can't even see what the ratings are of the ones over here. And I'm going to pull all these out and most likely replace most of them. And that didn't really help a whole lot. So, and I guess the good news is we can read all this stuff just fine. These we're going to have to take out slowly and just note what they are before setting them aside. So we'll start with this one. I can't read it at all. Some corrosion on it. Looks to be red, so that is probably a 10 amp. The run below it is the same. And then this looks like it's blue, 15 amp. And the bottom one, I'm pretty sure, is yellow, or at least it used to be. Yeah, yellow and covered in mouse pea. So I'm just going to pull all these out, and then we're going to spray this down with contact cleaner. And I'm going to try to also pull this fuse block out to look behind it. Yeah, we might need to clean it. Might be some chewed wires if we're lucky. You know, the damage is contained to this area, which isn't a great thing because pretty much everything electrical for the engine comes into here. So damage here obviously can cause big problems. And they're getting better here on the right side. So the left side, I think, took the brunt of it, which is good because these fuses aren't that expensive. You know, if the relays are damaged, those get a little bit more pricey. I actually replaced most of these about 5 years ago from a similar incident. And I'm likely going to leave this block alone. This looks like it's untouched. Wow, that one doesn't want to come out. That's not a good sign. Actually, that one is the same, so maybe it's just the pin tension. Or maybe it's really corroded. Yeah, corrosion on that one. Yeah, same thing there. So, looks like the right side caught some of that mouse pea. That one's decent. That one looks really good. And this bottom one is very stuck. Yeah, lots of corrosion on that one. Yeah, it would have been nice if they had designed this a little bit better so that mice couldn't get in, or in such a way that the important stuff is up top and the big empty space is on the bottom, because if the mouse made his nest at the bottom here and all this was up high, it likely wouldn't have resulted in this mess. Yeah, that one's not coming out. There we go. Yeah, that one's really bad. Yikes. And we'll take a quick look at the relays, but from looking at them on the outside here, they actually look decent. Yeah, they could use to be cleaned up, so yeah, I guess we will take them all out. Yeah, the relays aren't terrible, but I can see we got the green crusties on at least 2 of them. And of course, the fuses, that one especially, is quite bad. So we're going to replace all those. The ones here on the left, those are just spares, so I'm not too worried about those. And the block at the top appears to have escaped the damage. So I'm going to spray this down with contact cleaner. I highly doubt that's going to do a whole lot, but let's start there. I'll say it doesn't look terrible. I think we got pretty lucky on this one in that the mouse didn't really seem to chew up the wires. Something maybe a little questionable right there. But I'm not seeing any bare wires, so that is a good sign. All right, just got back from O'Reilly's, picked up a bunch of new fuses, also some new relays and more contact cleaner. Not a cheap trip. Almost spent $200. And now that I'm looking at this stuff more closely, some of it doesn't look great. This one actually looks used, as well as that one. So yeah, we might reuse some of the old ones if the old ones are better looking than that. But I'm going to take a second, get all the stuff out of the packaging. We'll plug it in and hope that that fixes the no crank, no start issue. And of course it decided to start raining out. But I've got to know, are we going to go deeper down the rabbit hole? Or is this going to fix the issue? So these little guys I'm putting in, these are all the ones that light up if they blow. So they'll be really easy to identify. And the larger ones, I was able to get a couple like that, but the rest are just normal. So if it blows, if one of the big ones blow, we're gonna have to test it with the multimeter. And these new 60 amps, the one that didn't look so great, I ended up just cleaning them with contact cleaner, and that washed right off. So I'm not overly concerned about them. That said though, O'Reilly's didn't have enough of these. I needed 4 new ones and I could only buy 3. So we are going to reuse one of the old ones. And we're going to reuse this one. This was the best of the lot. Of the ones we pulled out, the pins were actually pretty clean. So that takes care of all the big fuses. I have to double check this one. These were the ones that were hard to read. Actually, I'm going to double check all of them and make sure they're right before we proceed to getting the relays back. And this one, it is a red, which is a 10 amp. And the one at the bottom actually is supposed to be a yellow, which is a 20 amp, and I put a 5 amp in there. So I'm going to pull that one out and swap it for the 20 amp. Okay, and that brings us now to the relays. Now I apologize, it is a bit noisy. It is actually raining out. Probably not the best time to be doing this. But this relay we're going to reuse. It looked good, you know, as far as the pin condition goes. So we'll get that back. And we're also going to reuse this one. It looked to be in pretty good shape. And the rest of the relays we're replacing. So this one is brand new. Replacing this one, which got a little bit of corrosion on it. And these bottom two we're replacing as well. So they were the same part number. I think O'Reilly's kind of mixed and matched brands here, but I believe it is compatible. Okay. So let's reconnect the battery and see what happens. All right, I'm going to leave you guys situated right here when I connect the battery. If any of these blow out, they should light up, and these clear ones the same. So keep an eye on things. Hopefully we don't let the magic smoke out. So we're going to get the positives connected first. First for the house battery, then the start battery. And we'll circle back and connect up the negative wires. All right, so let's take a look if anything blew immediately. And no, nothing's blown yet. So let's crank the engine, see if it starts. So far so good. I don't see any communication error message. Let's crank the engine. And now we get a crank. Oh, I was going to say no start, but it did. We are idling. That is good news, because I do not know where the engine computer is on this. And it's actually been over half a year since I started this. And the tank, I did not leave it full, so that is not a good thing. There is likely some condensation in there at this point. But it is idling nice and smooth. Very nice. So let's just double check things here. Like I said, it's been a while since this has run. And I was actually kind of most curious about the generator. I believe I emptied it of fuel, but it is carb driven. Got 48 psi oil pressure. And no issues at all. So I'm going to shut it down. And next, let's see if the generator starts. And let's see, the generator, we're going to prime the pump. And if the bowl is empty, it's filling up right now. And let's crank the engine. Yeah, it's trying. There we go. Generator's running. It actually sounds pretty good. Now, one thing I'm curious to see is if the automatic transfer switch actually switches over. This has been problematic. It does usually switch over, but it takes a good 2 minutes, actually. It made a liar out of me. So it did come online, and the symptom that it's displaying, besides the fact it's a little slow to switch, is that the amp gauge a lot of times freezes up. So if I turn just the fan on, so the fan's on, it should be pulling about 4 or 5 amps right now, and this is actually frozen. It's not going to show us the actual read, which isn't a big deal. I know what the loads pull. The more concerning thing is that someday this may not switch over, and it's also supposed to do load shedding, which I'm not sure if that's working either. Anyway, I've never tested the power from this generator, so let's hook up the kilowatt real quick. We'll hook up the amp probe and just see what kind of power quality this generator makes. So I've got the AC turned on, both compressors, so we're at a pretty moderate load, and under that load we're at about 61 hertz, 117.8 volts, which isn't bad. And the THD, not expecting it to be clean. It is brushless. Actually, I've got to switch this to THD. There we go. But it's also not bad. We're at about 10.5% THD. So that's actually better than most. So I'm going to take the load off, and we'll let the generator cool down for a couple minutes, and then we'll shut it down. And I guess while we wait for that generator to cool off a bit, I'm going to get the engine running again. I want to get that up to temp. Yeah, nice clean start that time. Yeah, generator sounds really good. This was actually the first video I ever made on YouTube, was repairing this about 8 years ago. If you want to see a really bad video, go back and check that one out. But the repair itself turned out pretty well because I've had no issues with it since then. Anyway, let's shut the machine down. We can actually do it from out here. There is a switch behind this panel. And I was wrong. It looks like there is a mechanical governor on this one. But yeah, pretty cramped. You know, if anything needed some serious work on this, you'd have to pull it out. There's no way to service this while in the coach. Aside from an air filter or an oil change, you know, that's about it. So yeah, I think we dodged a bullet on this one. This would have been a 16,000 pound paperweight if this hadn't affixed it, and potentially could have been many hours of work. So I do need to come up with a better way to keep mice out. You know, unfortunately, it's not the best design. And my concern is, although the contact cleaner did seem to do a good job, you know, I'm not sure if it really got out all that mouse urine. and long term, there could be consequences to not getting it cleaned out. So I did spray a little bit of WD-40 in there. I actually tried to find deoxit, but nobody locally had it in stock. So yeah, I'm not sure what to think about that, or even if that was a better choice. So if you have any experience dealing with a problem like this, let me know what products you use to clean it up. Anyway, I think I'm gonna try taking this for a short trip. We do need to top off the tanks with fuel. It's kind of late in the day now, but I'm thinking maybe tomorrow we'll get out on the road and see if we can make it a few miles down the road. All right, it is a beautiful day out, so let's go for a little ride and see how this thing does. All right, so we're just going to ease it down the driveway. It probably doesn't look it on camera, but it's fairly steep, and the RV has to be backed in. Otherwise, it's going to bottom out, and even when pulling out, it comes within half an inch. So I'm always worried, frost heaves changed the shape of anything down here. We're not going to make it out. But so far, so good. At least the brakes work. Okay, and that was uneventful. So for the most part, I'm not expecting to have a problem, but even if we didn't have the electrical issues, we do have other issues. The street I'm about to pull out onto, it's a very tight road, and there's two corners where it gets really dicey. If another car happens to come at the exact same time, or even worse, another vehicle this size, we're not going to both make it. So I've been lucky so far, and hopefully that continues today. But we'll find out in about 2 minutes. Don't mind the red light on the dashboard. There's an older video on the channel. It's pretty exciting. The hydraulic system failed on the highway, and the jacks came down at highway speeds on a bridge. And let's just say it wasn't good. So the leveling system I deleted from the machine, so it's letting me know that while the jacks, they aren't up, that's because they aren't there. So this corner right here is dicey, because I got to put the front end of the RV kind of on the other side of the road so that we don't hit the rocks on the right. And yeah, thankfully no one was coming. And here we are. So with the price of gas the way that it is, even though we have a third of a tank, I'm expecting this is going to cost about $200. We shall see. We're at 34 gallons so far, and I think we have another 10 to go. But it looks like 175 is the limit on this card. And round 2. So a little bit more than I thought. First fill up was $175 and the second one was $81, so just over $250 to bring this up from a third of a tank up to full. A lot of classic cars out today. Must be a car show somewhere. Back on that narrow road, which two-way traffic where it's straight like this isn't a big deal, but this corner coming up, that is the one to watch out for. And to a lesser extent, there's one right after it, which would be pretty tight, but this one, you gotta swing the front to the wrong side of the road so you don't off track, and here we have a car coming, so we're going to slow down, and we just made it, and of course another car. And we made it back without issue. Now, granted, it was a fairly short trip, but much better than when we started. This thing was essentially a paperweight. Now it runs and drives, and confidence level is increasing. But long term, I think we're going to have a problem here. Although I cleaned out that box, there is still corrosion going on. This isn't the first time it's happened, and at some point, this thing is going to be a paperweight. So yeah, hopefully I can find a new one. This machine, it's about 20 years old, but it does have a GM 8.1 liter Vortec, and I'm willing to bet that box and the pins used are likely used on other vehicles. So if you happen to know where I can get a new one, let me know down in the comments, because at some point I'm going to need it. So I hope this video helps someone. Thanks for watching.